Good morning, students. Welcome to your science class. So, students, today we are going to start with our new block, which is block number 29, and the name of the block is food management. So, our today's topic is S1 and S2, which is soil preparation and seed sowing, as well as, I'm sorry, we are, okay, block 29. So, okay, here we go. So it is increasing crop yield and managing food. So these are the two things we will be learning today. So we'll need some resources for that. So leguminous plant and non-leguminous plant, as well as our content book, workbook and notebook. The keywords which we will be frequently using in today's class is the leguminous, the crop rotation, nodules, pest and storage. So these are the few words which will remain in focus today. The aim of our class is that we will be able to explain mixed cultivation and crop rotation, and so these will be the some strategies of increasing crop yield, and we will describe the ways of proper storage of grains, fruits and vegetables. So students, look at this picture. What you see here is the first one is the leguminous plant. The second one, what you see, is the non-leguminous plant. So it will be difficult for us to find this plant. So I have just used this picture to make you understand what exactly this means. Now, if you see, you will be finding some differences between these two. So the first one is a leguminous plant. You can see the nodes there, and the second one is the non-leguminous plant. Now, the difference between these two plants are that bean plants are leguminous plants, and because they have nodules on their roots, whereas rice plants are non-leguminous plants, and because such plants do not have nodules on these roots. So why are we learning about this leguminous plant and non-leguminous plant? That is something we are going to discover it later. So if I ask you a question, what are leguminous plants? So we are looking at a proper definition here. To answer that question, leguminous plants are those plants which have nodules, which we all know it will have nodules in it. And some leguminous plants, examples are like beans, pea, pulses, gram dal, soya bean. These are a few examples of it. Now, the second question come here is that so these were the examples. So how do these help to enrich the soil? What is the role of leguminous plant in increasing the fertility in the soil fertility or soil nutrients? Now students, we all know that plant needs nitrogen to form proteins, and so that becomes the nutrition to the plant. Now plants cannot absorb nitrogen gas directly from air. So we know that nitrogen is also available in our atmosphere, so but it's not there. So they absorbed it in the form of nitrates and their compounds from the soil. Now the root nodules of these leguminous plants have rhizobium bacteria. Now what does rhizobium bacteria does is it helps us to fix the atmospheric nitrogen to form nitrogen compounds in soil. So that is the reason it makes it important. So the question is, what are the two strategies used to maintain the level of soil nutrients? Now there are two options here. One is the crop rotation, and mixed crops are the two organic way to maintain the nutrient level of soil. So these are the two methods which one can use. Now we come to the next question. What is crop rotation then? See, crop rotation is a practice in which different kinds of crops are grown in a year or in a part of year. A different plant uses different nutrients. So different plants, when we grow, that uses different nutrients from soil, and also it gives back nutrients to the soil. So by crop rotation, what happens is the different crop, when we grow, the nutrients level of the soil remains balanced or maintained, and that makes and keeps the soil healthy. Then, what is mixed cropping? What about mixed cropping? Now, mixed cropping is an organic method of farming, right, in which different crops can be planted in a field at the same time. Now, nitrogen provides necessary nutrients to plants to produce proteins. Here you can see the detailed description about the crop rotation and the mixed crops. So next is why is nitrogen necessary for a plant? So nitrogen is necessary to maintain the level or the health of the crops. Now, what will happen if only leguminous plants are grown on a field? So, what will happen is also, first thing before answering that question, we all know that plants use up some nutrients from the soil and give back some nutrients back to the soil. So, if only leguminous plants are grown, so there will be a lot of nitrogen in the soil, right? And but the soil will lack other nutrients. So other nutrients which it requires will not be there. So thus the soil will become deficient in other nutrients over a period of time. So that is the reason crop rotation is done. When crop rotation is done, all the nutrients are retained back to the soil. So let's come to our section 2, which is managing food, which is the most important thing to learn, because most of you would have seen in our surrounding, we waste a lot of food. Foods are thrown in drain, foods are thrown in streets, and good food, instead of giving it to someone to eat, is just wasted. So it's important for us to manage food, and that's where this chapter comes into the picture. So why do we sometimes need to throw food away? So the food items, when it gets spoiled, that is when it needs to be thrown away. Now, what are pests? Give some example. Before that, what is done to prevent pests? Normally, understanding pests are the animals which attack on insects, or animals which attacks on food. For example, caterpillar, rats, ants, these are considered as pests. Now, food must be stored properly to avoid this pests. If you don't store the food properly, then the pest will attack our food. So what is done to prevent the pest? So we need to store the food properly. There are certain methods which we are going to talk about this. Now, what happens to the crop after rotation? Now, after harvesting, after harvesting. So after harvesting, what we do is the crops are tied in bundle and kept in the sun to dry. So after they completely dry up, they undergo the threshing and the winnowing method. So threshing and winnowing, and then food is stored in the jute bags, metallic bins, either in godowns or silos or granaries or perris, and pit ducts in fields, right? And finally, food grain. And finally, the food grains like the fruits and the vegetables are taken to the local market, from where it reaches our home. So, what is food stored for? So, foods are stored in different places, like as we discussed, like the metallic bin, godowns, silos, granaries, perries, and pit ducts, right? So, what about pest? What about pest? So, to protect pest, we use some methods to keep our food safe. What are those methods? Is what we are going to learn in the upcoming slide. But why is drying of food important? Why after the crop is harvested is kept under the sun? So students, to answer that question, drying will remove the moisture from the food, right? And once the moisture is removed from the grain, the fungal and the bacteria infection chances is reduced to a very greater extent. Now, grain, fruits, and vegetables need to be stored well so that they can last for longer periods and remains protected from decay or from pest. Now, jute bags and bins are normally used for if there is a smaller amount of food, then we are going to use jute bags and bins. But if there are large amount of food, then granaries or in silos is where it is used. Now we have also come across the term perries. Perries are used for storing food grains that can be antimicrobial, that can be used regularly. Right now, what about citrus food? What about citrus food? Citrus food in the field will which helps us them to stay cold, right? So that is the reason they are kept there. Now, bamboo. Sorry, what? Why are neem leaves, tulsi leaves, walnut leaves, and turmeric used for storage of food? See, these things are used because they have the antimicrobial properties that can help to keep the pest away. Even at your home, you would have seen your mother or your grandmother keeping these things along with the grains, right? Because they have antimicrobial properties and they don't allow the pest and other things to attack them. Why is bamboo and cow dung used in some places? Now, bamboo allows air circulation to happen, and cow dung has antimicrobial properties which prevents the pest attack. That is the reason in few places you would see that bamboo and cow dung are used to keep or store the foods. How are fruits and vegetables stored? And why do the method differ from the dry food storage? Now, fruits and vegetables are stored in cold storage. You would have seen every district, every place these days have cold storage, where especially potatoes are stored, which is very common in our place. But there are places where fruits and other vegetables are also stored. Now, cold storage is a way of storing things in a refrigerator. If it's a small amount of food, you keep it in a refrigerator. If it's a large amount of food, then you put it in a cold storage. Now, fruits and vegetables have more moisture in them. So when we compare to dry food, so if they have moisture, that means they undergo chemical change drastically, and when they undergo chemical change, they get spoils or can easily get attacked by the pest. So the method of storing fruit and vegetables differ from the dry food storage because fruits and vegetables contains more moisture than the food grains. So when we keep the food grains on the under the sun, all the moisture dries up. But the same thing you cannot do it with vegetables. That is the reason that there is a difference between them. So students, this brings us to the end of discussion. So what is the question of the day? Question of the day is leguminous plants have dash bacteria. So what bacteria is there is what we have to mention it here. And our homework would be, we will be completing practice question 1 to 6 and additional question 1 to 6 for homework. And just in case if you have any doubts or question, you can reach me through the comment section. So thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.